It was good. Today we got the part 2 of evolution, so we ended with 25.7. So today we're going to go on to genetic variation. So genetic variation is simply just wait, hold on. It's simply like, how do I say it? Like, it's like variation at the genetic level, like changes in the DNA, like mutation kind of. Just at the DNA level, like the differences between individuals. That's like genetic variation. I'm just loading up the AI and the notes right now. Beep, beep, baby. Damn, where's she at? Well, where's she at? But I think it's like rent free in my mind right now. Where's she at? Where's she at? Now I'm gonna slide on my own, bro. Okay, genetic variation. Differences at the gametic level among, yeah, so at the gametic level, like gametic level, the genetic level. So yeah, DNA basically. Okay, so what are the 5 ways for genetic variation to occur? There's mutation, there's sexual variation, there's diploidy, there's outbreeding, and then there's polymorphism. So let me state those 5 again. There's outbreeding. Whoa, I don't even remember them. Outbreeding, sexual reproduction, mutation. I don't remember. Okay, let me try this again. Okay, so we got diploidy, we got mutation, we got sexual reproduction. We got like the homozygous, like the hybrid vigor. No. Balanced polymorphism and outbreeding. Okay, let's try this again. Mutation, outbreeding, sexual reproduction. Wait, there's outbreeding, sexual reproduction, diploidy. Yo, how am I this geek, bro? Outbreeding and polymorphism. One more time. There is the mutation, there is sexual reproduction, there is balanced polymorphism, there is diploidy, and then there's mutation, did I say that? Or sexual reproduction, did I say that? Or I think I said everything. Outbreeding, polymorphism, yeah, okay. So let's talk about each one. So mutation, these are literally just DNA mutating. Like, it's not the same, it's like just different. Like small changes in the DNA. You could introduce some new alleles from those mutations. Like, I don't know, delete them, relocate them, flip them, insert them, add them. You can do many things. Yeah, I low-key forgot about that from the original chem thing, bro. I have to learn epigenetics, bro, but there's no videos on it, so I gotta like make notes on that. Okay, so there's 3 methods in the sexual reproduction. So first, there is crossover, right? So that's like when prophase 1, on the chiasmata area, the DNA, the homologous chromosomes will split, they'll cross over, transport to each other, cross over. Now there's also independent assortment, meaning, you don't know which, how to say that, which homologous chromosome goes to each gamete, like to each cell. It's like, it doesn't really matter, it's like independent. Like, like one gene does not affect how the other one. That's why it's independent. And then the next one's like random fertilization. Like, you don't know which gamete, like which sperm will which egg. It's like, it's completely random. So diploidy. So being diploid, that means that we carry an extra pair of genes. Like, wait, that sounds like funny. Like extra, like we have another set of genes, right? Like genes, like genes. Why did I make that sound? So it's like, we carry an extra pair of genes that are not expressed, right? So those genes cannot be expressed and they can move on to the next option. So that could increase variation because they're like silenced, right? So yeah, what increase when inbreeding? So inbreeding is when you mate like within like close relationships, right? So that's like incest basically. So in that inbreeding causes more homozygous. Homozygous? What the frick? The homozygous. Like it'll cause more homozygous genotypes rather than heterozygous. So it'll like, the allele frequency won't change, but it's like you'll have more homozygous and you'll have more like homozygous dominant, homozygous recessive. You won't have like that many heterozygotes. That's like the main kind of disadvantage. So now, yeah, so changes in genotype proportions, but not allele frequency, more homozygous dominant, recessive, less heterozygotes, less genetic variation. So outbreeding will increase kind of variation, and that could lead to more heterozygotes. So hybrid vigor is a result of this. So hybrid vigor is when you have like that, when you outbreed, right? Like, because inbreeding is like within closely related, right? Inbreeding, yeah, close relatives. But when you outbreed, there's like more distant relatives. So then when you mate with those, you could create a hybrid that is like better, and that's kind of what it means by hybrid vigor. It's like the advantageous or higher quality offspring that is kind of a hybrid than either of the parents. Like, what I'm saying, like it's like the horse and the donkey. You get a mule, so that's like hybrid vigor, and it's also referred to heterosis. Heterosis. But it's like, yeah, another example that they give is like corn. Some corn might be too small, but they might be super yellow. But some corn might be big, and they might just be ugly, right? So you want the best of both worlds. So that's basically what hybrid vigor is. You're getting the best of both worlds through the kind of hybrid or heterozygous. I feel like it doesn't specifically say heterozygous, but I would assume so, but I don't know. Then balanced polymorphism. So this is, if you have the heterozygous, so balanced polymorphism is kind of like, I don't really remember this. I don't remember this before, but what it's basically saying is like you're balancing, you're like maintaining the frequency of alleles, dominant and recessive alleles, in the population as it goes on. So it's kind of like by heterozygous advantage, it means like how do I say it? It's like okay, so what is balanced polymorphism? That's basically just saying like you're maintaining the frequency of the both alleles or multiple alleles in the population as time progresses. This comes to be through heterozygous advantages. So it's like sickle cell anemia. You're gonna have the sickle cell allele, and you're gonna have the normal blood cell allele, right? So in these environments, people who are heterozygous, they have the advantage, so they're going to carry both alleles, and those alleles will continue to get carried on because those are the advantageous ones. So you'll just keep on dividing, and those alleles will be maintained. Another example of this is called frequency dependent selection. This is simply when at certain times one allele or one phenotype or genotype will be more favorable. Like let's say the example they give is like a predator, right? The predator recognizes the blue color of an insect, let's say, right? But then let's say a mutation comes in, and then it starts to turn like black, right? So then the beetles will start turning black, the insects will start turning black, and then there will be more black insects rather than blue insects because all the blue insects are getting hunted down. Now, soon after, if this predator is like, has a brain, it'll be like, yo, these beetles are black now. So then it's going to be like, okay, I need to get the black beetles now. So now, in this case, blue beetles will have the advantage because they will not be recognized, and the black beetles will start reducing. So it's kind of like just a game of like maintaining these two alleles, because at some points, with a higher frequency, one allele might not be as favorable, and the lower frequency allele will be favorable, but then it can just go both ways and go backwards. So yeah, basically. So what is the population hardy hybrid? So they're not evolving. These populations. So 5 recs for hardy hybrid equilibrium. So it's kind of like the same thing as the 5 causes of evolution. So I'm going to close my eyes and try and remember these. There's no mutation. There's no natural selection. There is random mating. The population is large to prevent genetic flow or drift or whatever. And I want to say there's no gene flow. Yeah, wow. Whoa. Yo, I got that like all in order. Okay, that's good. So large population size, that's mainly used for genetic drift, meaning like um, founder's effect and bottleneck. So when you have a large population size, it'll like prevent the huge effects from that. No mutations, that's kind of a evolution thing. So you just don't want to have, um, you know, new alleles being introduced to the population. Random mating, you don't want to have selective traits selected for. Like you don't want some traits to be selected for while some are not. You just want everyone to have a fair chance. But I'm like pronouncing all these words like super badly. I don't know what's going on. No natural selection. You don't want to. Everyone has a fair chance at life. That's the dream, right? So yeah, large population style just said no gene flow. You don't want to have new alleles getting introduced, so it needs to stay constant. Basically, the main idea is that there's no alleles being introduced. There's no favoritism towards some alleles. That's basically what you need for Hardy-Weinberg. So the equation for the Hardy-Weinberg is p squared is p squared plus 2p. Whoa, two. Okay, p squared plus 2pq is equal. No. Yo, I know it's in my mind. It's just I can't like communicate. Right? P squared plus 2pq plus q squared equals 1. So p squared being the frequency of the homozygous dominant or like the homozygous trait, q squared being the other allele homozygous trait, genotype, and then 2pq, that's like the frequency of the heterozygous. So now there's also like another one you can add like p itself is equal to the frequency of one allele, q itself is representative to another allele frequency. So p plus q must equal to 1. So we're only going to be looking at two alleles of interest in this case. So yeah, that's kind of it for Hardy-Weinberg. I don't really, this is practice for that one. Damn, why is there Loki a lot? Okay, so species are biologically defined as not being reproductive. Like they can't like they're only able to reproduce with themselves. They're like with their own species. Like they're biologically separate from them because they cannot produce for offspring with those others. Speciation is just making a new species. Like what? Yeah. Okay. So now, what is reproductive isolation? That's just like not being able to reproduce with another species. You're not able to make you're not able to breed with them. You're not able to make fertile offspring with them. That's kind of what it means by being reproductively isolated. So that's kind of like I feel like it's specific to biological because there's also like allopatric and sympatric speciation, and I feel like that's more of a that's more physical, I would say. However, here we're just talking about like like within this like not like environmental kind of I think, but I'm not fully sure. But anyways, we got two types of reproductive isolation. What does it prevent? So there's prezygotic. So what this is saying is that this will prevent the zygote from forming. So there's prezygotic and then postzygotic isolation. So prezygotic, there's habitat, temporal, behavioral, mechanical, and gametic. Now let me close my eyes and let me try to remember this. The one I can remember the most is mechanism, because there's gametic. There's temporal, behavioral. I want to say habitat. Yeah. He is he the goat? Is he the goat? Okay, let me try one more time. Gametic, mechanism, like mechanism, temporal, habitat, and behavioral. So, how does it work? So, habitat meaning these two species might just be occupying different habitats. They're in different areas. So if they're not in the same area, they're not physically there. So they're not going to be able to physically connect, if you know what I mean. Temporal meaning like one might be active at night and one might be active at day. So if one's sleeping, you're not going to be able to do reproduction. Behavioral, there's some who do dances and stuff like that or do specific calls to mate. So one species may understand it, like one species may do a call, but the other species will not understand it and it just won't work. Mechanical, this is simply like the two puzzle pieces will not fit together, bro. You know, like it might be too big, might be too small, might just not work. And then gametic is kind of like within that, like the sperm and the egg might not be able to like work together. You know, like one, like it could, like the enzymes might not be right. It might be too thick. The egg, the sperm might get killed from the acidic area of that. You know, it might just not work out. So yeah. So now there's post-zygotic. So this is like like a zygote forms, and then you're like, you know, you're like on the way. You know. So inviability, meaning that the zygote will just die in development. Like it won't be able to like come to life. Like it won't develop and it'll die before, you know, getting to maturity. Sterility is like the hybrid will live and it'll like mature, but it won't be able to like reproduce. Like it'll be sterile. It won't be fertile. Like a mule. Mules cannot reproduce, or ligers as well. So then hybrid breakdown is kind of a build on sterility. So rather than the first generation of hybrid being infertile, they will be fertile. They'll be able to reproduce and they'll be able to make offspring. However, these offspring will not be able to reproduce and they'll just, you know, they'll just die off there. So yeah, none of the future generations will be viable. Okay, so what is the difference between allopatric and sympatric? So the main difference is that allopatric is geographical, while sympatric is three other things. Okay, so anytime they say like, yo, these are geographically isolated things, then is allopatric, basically. So now, three ways for sympatric is habitat, sexual selection, and polyploidy. I don't really understand what sympatric even means right now. So allopatric is a physical barrier, sympatric is a geographical location. So they're in the geographical location, but there's just different things that just don't work. So yeah, allopatric is like they'll be similar at first, like one species, and then they'll be divided, and then they'll start, you know, evolving their own ways, and then, you know, they might not even be able to freaking reproduce together anymore. So sympatric comes from habitat differentiation, sexual selection, and polyploidy. Okay, yeah, I think I get it. So there's two ways for speciation to occur. There's allopatric and there's sympatric. Allopatric is simply just geographical physical barriers between them. Sympatric is just like they're in the same location, but it's just different things. So these three things are habitat. I'm closing my eyes. I'm just making the screen so it doesn't turn off. Like habitat, polyploidy, and sexual selection. Okay, so how does each one work? So habitat is like, yo, this one species might live in the same area but in a different habitat. So like, you know, there might be different selection pressures, you know, that force each species to behave differently. So they'll have these different adaptations. They might develop differently, and then eventually they'll become so different. Sexual selection is like, yo, some certain traits will be favored. So those traits that are favored, they'll get bred with more. Then those favorable traits will kind of keep on building up and form a new species, while the ones with the less favorable traits, they just keep on breeding and they're just like there, you know? So yeah. Polyploidy is like, yo, so some plants, they're able to like freaking become like multiple ploidy, like 3N or 4N even. And then those 4N or 3N plants, those polyploidy plants, they will not be able to reproduce with the regular 2N or N plants. So these polyploidy plants will reproduce with other polyploidy plants, and then they'll just keep on going, and then they'll just freaking become a new species. So what is adaptive radiation? It's simply just from one common ancestor, you get multiple. So an example of this is barn finches. Okay, wrapping up kind of. So we got divergent evolution. So these are the types of evolutionary patterns. So there's divergent, convergent, parallel, and what's the last one? Coevolution. So let me try that again. There is parallel, divergent, convergent, and coevolution. Let me try that again. Convergent, divergent, coevolution. Bro, I just realized we still have our Christmas lights on. Convergent, divergent, coevolution, and parallel. Okay, so now what does each one mean? Divergent evolution means like, we got one common ancestor. They're going to diverge, develop their own species, develop their own traits, and they're just going to continue on as being different. Like from the wolves, we got domestic dogs and we got foxes. Convergent evolution is two completely unrelated species. They're in the same environment, so they start to develop kind of similar characteristics, like fish and whales, or birds and bats. Parallel evolution is we're gonna have one big split, kind of, and then they're gonna still have like similar traits, and they're just gonna maintain it. So elephants and mammoths. Coevolution, there's two types here. So there's predator prey, and then there's pollination. So predator prey is just like the predator and the prey. Like predator and prey and predator, basically, right? So what does the graph look like? So it'll look kind of like a wave, but it'll be slightly slanted for the other. So what basically happens is like, the prey is getting hunted by the fox, right? Like the rabbit is getting hunted by the fox, but then the rabbit, they evolve and they become faster. Then basically the foxes will adapt eventually, and then they'll catch up to the rabbit, and we'll just keep on evolving, right? So the graph of like the frequency, or like the life of like how many there are, it'll like kind of follow a wave pattern, and then as one species is going up, like rabbits is going up, then foxes will follow suit because there's more food. But then eventually the foxes will overeat the rabbits, and the rabbits will start dying out. The rabbit population will start to decrease, and then therefore the fox population will decrease as well. However, there's a slight delay in this because reproduction is not instantaneous, so it's not fully synced, but it's like slightly offset. That's basically predator prey. But so it's kind of like a negative feedback loop. If you relate it to hormones and endocrine, it's just more delayed because it takes some time to reproduce and all that and react to that. So yeah, basically, you have too much foxes, then you're gonna start slowing down. You're gonna start reducing the amount of rabbits, and then too little rabbits, then too little foxes, and then too little foxes increase the rabbit population, etc. So yeah, pollination. It's like hummingbirds and these kind of flowers that have long tubes. It's considered to be mutualism because as the flower gets a deeper tube, the hummingbird will start to develop a longer beak. That longer beak will able to go deeper into the tube. Again. And then why is this mutualism? So with this, it benefits the flower because the flower is able to save its pollen for more effective pollinators rather than it being given to like more like inefficient pollinators, right? So the hummingbird, it's known for being a pollinator. It's good pollinator, so it's efficient. So the flower would rather that the hummingbird gives the pollen to the hummingbird because it's just more effective, right? That's like mutualism. Like it protects the pollen and is like more effective, right? And then the hummingbird is mutualist to that because the hummingbird is able to get the food more easily, like the nectar, right? So it's able to just it has it has its food unlocked, it's like it's just like the only one that can get it, kind of. So yeah. There are three main types of survival adaptation. So there's, I want to say physical, physiological, like mental, like inside, physical, and I don't really know the other one. Let me try thinking. Yeah. Okay. Upon further looking. Okay, let me try. Okay, physiological. I remember that one for sure. There's structural or like physical, and then behavioral. That's what I didn't remember. So yeah, what does each one mean briefly? Behavioral, an example of this is like you react specifically. So like, you know, a turtle, um, it'll like retract when it feels threat. Structural is like camouflage, kind of like a frog blending in, and then physiological is like poison. So yeah. Specific adaptations. So there's secondary compounds that's basically kind of physiological. Like plants, they can't move, right? So they gotta come up with other ways to defend themselves. So some may be toxic, and they'll just cause issues. Cryptic coloration, that's just a fancy word for camouflage. Aposematic coloration, that's like warning colors, like having bright colors like wasps or frogs. And then there's two types of what do you mean by two positives? Okay, wait, let me talk about the specific adaptation again. So what are the one, two, three, four? So there's four. There's mimicry. Wait, no, what? Mimicry is one, right? Yeah, mimicry. Okay, let me try again. Mimicry. Wait, let me try again. So we got four. I feel like if anyone even watches this video, right? Even if I watch this video again, I'm gonna think I genuinely have, like, I'm genuinely on the spectrum, bro. Like, I don't know what I'm saying. Okay, so there's four. There's mimicry. There's cryptic coloration. There's aposematic coloration and secondary compounds. Okay, let's try that again. Let us try that again. Okay. Cryptic coloration, basically camouflage. Aposematic coloring, which is warning colors of being toxic. Mimicry, secondary compounds. Okay, sick. So what is secondary Okay, I think we already talked about it, but aposematic coloring, that's like warning, that's like dangerous. Then mimicry, there's Malarian and Batesian. So the difference between that is Malarian is that both of them are harmful. So you get two benefits from this. One is that the what's trying to protect itself, it'll have a it'll be like it'll have another organism's color associated to it. So it's like both of them get the benefit of being that same color because more predator will know like that color and it'll like stay away. And then the positives for the predators is like, they'll know not to mess with it like two times, they'll see it twice, right? So it's basically like a reinforcement. And the Batesian is like that's like one of them is actually bad and the other one is just a copycat. It's like getting the benefit of being scared of. So yeah, it's not. Insects have several survival benefits. So four of them, I'm thinking with my eyes closed. Metamorphosis, they're small, high reproductive rates, or like lots of babies, and they require less nutrients. No. Metamorphosis, small, high reproductive rate, multiple reproductive strategies. So let's try that again. Highly reproductive lots of reproductive strategies. Lots of reproductive strategies. They're small. They have a lot of babies, and metamorphosis. So what does each one mean? Metamorphosis means that they got multiple life stages. So the babies aren't competing with the adults. Basically, that's what it means. Small, they're able to. They don't need too much resources to be able to live. They're able to fit everywhere. They don't take that much space. So yeah, high reproductive rate. They have a lot of babies. So a lot of babies have what the heck? They have a higher chance of freaking maturing and being successful in life. And then multiple reproductive strategies, like they could reproduce asexually. Some of them they just reproduce in like any way they want. It just maximizes the reproductive rate. I don't even know if they can do asexual, but who knows? Bro, my back is so cooked. Okay, but that's all. Finally done with evolution. This was low-key a long one, but we done.